I sat at my desk in my cramped college dorm room, laptop screen glowing with 4 years of research on sustainable energy solutions. Tomorrow was my thesis defense, the final step toward my engineering degree. My father burst through the door without knocking, his face twisted with rage about wasted money and worthless degrees. Before I could react, he grabbed my laptop and smashed it against my skull. Blood trickled down my forehead as my mother appeared in the doorway, actually laughing. "Your future? That's a joke," my father sneered. Pieces of my laptop scattered across the floor. "You don't deserve a future. You're just a leech." They left me bleeding and broken, but they had no idea what I would do next. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth as I pressed a towel against the gash on my forehead. Fragments of my laptop screen sparkled like broken dreams across my dorm room floor. 4 years of research, gone. My thesis defense was in 18 hours, and everything I had worked for lay destroyed at my feet. But this wasn't the first time my parents had tried to destroy my future. Growing up in suburban Denver, I learned early that success was something to hide from Frank and Diane, my parents who saw achievement as a personal insult. When I brought home straight-A report cards in elementary school, my father would crumple them up and tell me I was showing off. When teachers recommended me for gifted programs, my mother would refuse to sign the paperwork, claiming it would make me think I was better than everyone else. The pattern continued through high school. While my classmates celebrated college acceptances, I had to sneak around to even apply. When my acceptance letter to Colorado State University arrived with a full scholarship for engineering, I found my parents burning it in the backyard fire pit. They called me ungrateful for wanting to leave home, accused me of thinking I was too good for the family. Somehow, I managed to enroll anyway. The financial aid office helped me navigate the process without my parents' support. For 4 years, I threw myself into my studies, determined to prove that their constant criticism was wrong. My professors praised my innovative thinking. My research on sustainable energy storage systems earned recognition from industry experts. I was finally building the future I had dreamed of since childhood. Now, sitting in the wreckage of my dorm room, I realized how naive I had been to think they would leave me alone. The laptop destruction wasn't random violence. It was calculated sabotage, timed perfectly to ruin my thesis defense. I crawled around the floor, gathering broken pieces of plastic and metal, hoping to salvage something from my computer's hard drive. That's when I noticed something strange behind my desk where the laptop had been sitting. Several envelopes had fallen from a hidden space, letters I had never seen before. My hands shook as I opened the first envelope. It was an acceptance letter for a summer internship at Lockheed Martin, dated 8 months ago. The second was an invitation to interview for a graduate program at MIT. The third was from a renewable energy company offering me a position starting after graduation. Every single letter was addressed to me, but none had ever reached me. Someone had been intercepting my mail, hiding opportunities that could have changed my life. The postmarks showed a clear pattern going back almost 2 years. My stomach churned as the truth became clear. This wasn't just about tonight's laptop destruction. My parents had been systematically sabotaging my future for months, maybe years. They had been stealing my mail, rejecting opportunities on my behalf, telling companies and schools that I wasn't interested when I never even knew about the offers. I found a total of 17 letters hidden behind my desk. Job interviews, research opportunities, scholarship offers, graduate school acceptances. Each one represented a door they had slammed shut without my knowledge. While I struggled to pay for textbooks and wondered why nobody seemed interested in hiring me despite my excellent grades, they had been ensuring I remained trapped and dependent. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound. These weren't just parents who discouraged their child. These were people who had actively destroyed my chances at independence and success. They had stolen my future piece by piece, then convinced me I was the problem. As dawn light filtered through my dorm window, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to let them win. If they wanted to destroy my laptop the night before my defense, I would find another way. If they wanted to steal my opportunities, I would create new ones. I had 18 hours to reconstruct 4 years of research and deliver the presentation of my lifetime. But first, I needed to understand exactly how deep this conspiracy went. Because if my parents had been intercepting my mail and sabotaging my opportunities, there had to be a reason beyond simple cruelty. Someone was paying them to keep me down, and I was going to find out who. Dawn painted the sky orange and pink as I sat surrounded by the wreckage of my destroyed laptop and the evidence of my parents' betrayal. Every hidden letter felt like a punch to the gut, but I forced myself to focus on the immediate crisis. My thesis defense was in 16 hours, and I had nothing prepared. I grabbed my shower bag and ran to the dormitory bathroom, washing the dried blood from my hair while my mind raced through possibilities. The campus computer lab opened at 7. If I could access my cloud storage backup, I might salvage something. But as I searched my memory, my heart sank. I had been so focused on perfecting my research that I hadn't uploaded anything to the cloud in weeks. The most recent backup was from 2 months ago, missing all my final conclusions and presentation slides. The computer lab buzzed with nervous energy as other students prepared for finals week. I logged into a terminal and stared at my pathetically outdated backup files. 2 months of breakthrough research. Gone forever. My innovative battery storage calculations, my efficiency improvements, my cost-benefit analyses that had impressed even my most critical professors. Professor Martinez walked through the lab at 8:30, making his usual rounds before morning classes. I caught his attention desperately, my voice cracking as I explained what had happened. He listened with growing concern, especially when I showed him photos of my destroyed laptop and the hidden acceptance letters. "Cullen, this is extremely irregular," he said, adjusting his glasses as he examined the evidence. "University policy doesn't allow defense postponements, except in cases of medical emergency." "Professor, please," I begged. "Look at these letters. My parents have been sabotaging me for years. They planned this destruction deliberately, knowing it was my defense day." Professor Martinez studied the intercepted mail, his expression growing troubled. He had been my advisor for 2 years and knew the quality of my work. After 20 minutes of intense discussion, he agreed to advocate for a 24-hour extension with the department committee, but warned me it was far from guaranteed. While he made phone calls to department heads, I threw myself into reconstructing my thesis from memory. I pulled together fragments from old notes, recreated calculations by hand, and begged classmates to share any research materials they had copied from my presentations over the past months. By noon, Professor Martinez returned with good news and bad news. The committee had granted me a 24-hour extension, but they expected a complete presentation tomorrow morning. No exceptions, no further delays. If I couldn't deliver, I would have to repeat my entire final semester. The next 8 hours blurred together in a haze of desperate determination. I skipped meals, ignored my throbbing headache, and focused every ounce of mental energy on rebuilding 4 years of work in one day. Fellow engineering students helped where they could, sharing textbooks and letting me borrow their notes from seminars we had attended together. As afternoon faded into evening, I was making progress but falling far short of what I needed. My reconstructed thesis looked like amateur work compared to the sophisticated analysis I had spent months perfecting. I was missing crucial data, detailed calculations, and the innovative modeling that had made my original research so impressive. That's when she walked into the library. I was hunched over a computer terminal, surrounded by scattered papers and empty coffee cups, when someone tapped me on the shoulder. I looked up to see a professionally dressed woman with confident posture and expensive clothing that suggested serious business success. "Cullen," she asked with a warm smile. "You probably don't remember me, but I'm Sarah Walsh. We went to Hillcrest Elementary together until my family moved to California when we were in 6th grade." I blinked in confusion, trying to place her face. Sarah Walsh. Memories slowly surfaced of a quiet, brilliant girl who had been my closest friend until she disappeared from my life when her father got transferred for work. We had promised to stay in touch, but childhood friendships rarely survive long-distance moves. "Sarah? I can't believe it. What are you doing here?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious about my disheveled appearance and the chaos surrounding my workspace. "I'm in town on business," she explained, her eyes taking in the scattered papers and my obvious distress. "I was actually planning to attend your thesis defense tomorrow." I've been following your academic career from a distance, and I'm incredibly impressed with your published papers on energy storage systems. My face flushed with embarrassment. About that defense, there's been a complication. Sarah listened intently as I explained the laptop destruction, the intercepted letters, and my desperate attempt to reconstruct months of research in one day. Her expression grew increasingly serious as the story unfolded. "Cullen," she said slowly, "I think there's something you should know about why I'm really here." She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a business card. "Chief Technology Officer, Renewable Innovation Corporation." My jaw dropped as I recognized the company name. They were one of the leading clean energy firms in the country, responsible for several breakthrough technologies I had studied extensively. "I've been Chief Technology Officer there for 3 years," Sarah continued. "When I saw your name on published research papers, I started following your work closely. Your approach to battery storage efficiency is exactly what our company needs for our next-generation projects." She explained that she had come to Colorado specifically to observe my thesis defense and potentially offer me a position with her company. Instead, she found me in crisis, fighting to salvage my academic future from deliberate family sabotage. "This is completely unacceptable," Sarah said firmly, her business demeanor taking over. "You're one of the most promising young engineers I've encountered, and your family is actively destroying your potential. This ends now." She pulled out her phone and made a quick call. "Marcus? It's Sarah. I need an emergency response team at the Denver office tonight. Full technical support for a critical recruitment situation." As she hung up, Sarah turned back to me with determination in her eyes. "How would you like to reconstruct your thesis using some of the most advanced research facilities in the country?" An hour later, Sarah drove me through downtown Denver to a gleaming glass building I had passed hundreds of times but never noticed. Renewable Innovation Corporation occupied 4 floors of premium office space, with laboratories and research facilities that made my university's equipment look like toys from the Stone Age. "Most of our team works remotely," Sarah explained as we rode the elevator to the 15th floor, "but when I put out a call for emergency assistance, people respond." The elevator doors opened to reveal a bustling workspace that hummed with focused energy despite the late hour. Engineers clustered around workstations, sharing ideas and offering encouragement. Sarah introduced me to the team she had assembled on short notice, each person a specialist in different aspects of renewable energy technology. Marcus Chen headed their modeling department and immediately understood the scope of my challenge. Battery storage efficiency optimization with cost-benefit analysis for residential applications, he summarized after I explained my research focus. "I've read your preliminary papers. Your approach to thermal management is revolutionary." Within minutes, they had me set up at a workstation equipped with software and databases that made my destroyed laptop look primitive. The team worked around me like a well-orchestrated symphony, each person contributing expertise to help reconstruct and improve upon my original research. Dr. Jennifer Santos, their materials science specialist, enhanced my calculations with access to proprietary databases I had only dreamed of using. "Your theoretical framework is solid," she said, pulling up advanced modeling programs. "But with our lab data, we can prove your hypotheses with real-world testing results." As the night progressed, my thesis transformed from desperate reconstruction into something far more sophisticated than my original work. The team's collaborative approach challenged me to think beyond the constraints I had accepted in university research. They pushed me to consider commercial applications, manufacturing scalability, and market implementation strategies I had never explored. By 3 a.m, we had created a presentation that demonstrated not just academic understanding, but practical innovation with genuine industry value. My energy storage solutions weren't just theoretical anymore. They were viable products with clear paths to market implementation. "Cullen," Sarah said as we reviewed the final presentation slides, "I want to formally offer you a position with Renewable Innovation Corporation, starting immediately after your graduation. Senior Research Engineer, with a signing bonus and equity options." I stared at her in disbelief. "But you haven't even seen my thesis defense yet. What if I fail tomorrow?" She smiled confidently. After watching you work tonight, I'm not worried about your defense. You've shown more innovation and problem-solving ability in 8 hours than most engineers demonstrate in entire careers. Besides, this presentation is bulletproof. You're going to amaze them." The sun was rising as we finished the final preparations. I felt exhausted but exhilarated, ready to face the committee with research that exceeded anything I had imagined possible. Sarah offered to drive me back to campus, but first I needed to return to my dorm to shower and change clothes. As we pulled up to my dormitory building, I noticed my parents' car in the parking lot. My stomach clenched with anxiety. They had never visited me at school before, and their presence now felt ominous. "Do you want me to come with you?" Sarah offered, sensing my discomfort. "No, I should handle this alone," I replied. Though I appreciated her support more than I could express, I found them waiting in my dorm room, having somehow convinced the resident advisor to let them in. They sat on my bed like they owned the place, my father's arms crossed, and my mother wearing a smug expression that made my skin crawl. Well, my father sneered as I entered. "How did your precious thesis defense go?" "Oh wait, that's right. You can't defend a thesis when you don't have a computer." My mother laughed cruelly. "Frank, you should see his face. He actually thought he could make something of himself. It's almost sad how delusional he's become." I stood in my doorway, looking at these people who had spent years undermining everything I tried to achieve. But instead of the familiar, crushing disappointment, I felt something new. Pity. They had no idea what I had accomplished in the last 12 hours, or what opportunities waited for me after today's defense. "You know what's interesting?" I said calmly, pulling out my phone. "I found something fascinating behind my desk last night." I showed them photos of the intercepted letters, watching their expressions shift from smugness to concern. 17 opportunities you stole from me. Job interviews, graduate programs, internships, all hidden behind my desk where you knew it'd never look. My father's face reddened with anger. "You were snooping through our things." "Your things," I laughed bitterly. "These are letters addressed to me, delivered to my dorm room. The question is how you got access to them in the first place." My parents exchanged nervous glances. My mother attempted to deflect. "Cullen, you're being paranoid. Those letters probably just fell back there accidentally." "For 2 years, all 17 of them." I pulled out my laptop fragments. Just like this was an accident, the room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. My parents had expected to find me broken and defeated. Instead, they found someone who had discovered their deception and survived their latest attempt at sabotage. "It doesn't matter," my father said finally. "Without your computer, you can't give your presentation. You'll fail your defense, drop out of school, and finally stop this ridiculous fantasy about becoming an engineer." I smiled, remembering the sophisticated presentation waiting on Sarah's company servers. "Actually, Dad, my defense is in 4 hours, and it's going to be the best presentation this university has ever seen." For the first time in my life, I saw something new in my parents' eyes when they looked at me. Fear. That's when I heard my phone buzzing with a text message. It was Sarah. "Team celebration tonight after your defense. Also, just got off phone with my uncle. He had some very interesting things to say about your family situation. We need to talk." As I read the message, a chill ran down my spine. Sarah's uncle had information about my family. How could that be possible? We had lost touch for over a decade, and her family had moved to California. What could her uncle possibly know about my parents that would be relevant now? I looked up from my phone to find my parents watching me intently, their expressions shifting from fear to something that looked almost like panic. They knew something I didn't, and they were terrified I was about to find out what it was. 4 hours later, I stood before the university's thesis defense committee, delivering what would later be called one of the most impressive presentations in the engineering department's history. The combination of my original research and Renewable Innovation Corporation's advanced resources created a thesis that exceeded every expectation. Professor Martinez beamed with pride as committee members asked increasingly enthusiastic questions about my battery storage innovations. "Doctor, Williams from the electrical engineering department wanted to discuss commercial applications. Professor Thompson requested detailed calculations that I provided flawlessly, thanks to the team's overnight preparation. "Mr. Barrett," said Dr. Harrison, the committee chair, "this represents exceptionally sophisticated work. Your approach to thermal management and efficiency optimization shows remarkable insight into real-world engineering challenges." When they dismissed me to deliberate, I waited in the hallway with complete confidence. The presentation had been flawless, and their excited questions told me everything I needed to know about their decision. 20 minutes later, they called me back in. "Congratulations, Mr. Barrett," Dr. Harrison announced with a broad smile. "You have passed your thesis defense with the highest honors we can bestow. This committee unanimously recommends your work for publication in the Journal of Renewable Energy Systems." I walked out of that building feeling like I could conquer the world. 4 years of struggle, family sabotage, and last-minute crisis had led to the greatest academic achievement of my life. Sarah was waiting outside with a bottle of champagne and a huge grin. "I told you it would be amazing," she said, embracing me warmly. "Dr. Martinez just called me. He said the committee was blown away by your presentation. They've never seen undergraduate research of that caliber." The celebration dinner that night at Denver's finest restaurant felt like a dream. Sarah's team treated me like family, sharing stories about their own career journeys and welcoming me into their professional community. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who celebrated intelligence instead of punishing it. "There is one thing we need to discuss," Sarah said as dessert arrived. "I mentioned earlier that my uncle had information about your family situation." My stomach tightened with apprehension. "What kind of information?" Sarah's expression became serious. "My Uncle Raymond is a private investigator who specializes in financial fraud cases. Has been working on something that involves your parents, though he didn't realize the connection until I mentioned your name tonight." She pulled out a tablet and showed me a detailed investigation report, financial records, bank statements, phone logs, and surveillance photos that made my blood run cold. "Cullen, your parents have been receiving monthly payments for the past 8 years, $5,000 every month, deposited into an account they thought was untraceable. The documents showed a clear paper trail leading from a company called Hartley Consulting to my parents' secret bank account. Regular payments with notations like CC problem management and ongoing containment." "CC," I whispered, realizing the horrible truth. "Cullen containment." Sarah nodded grimly. "My uncle has been investigating Hartley Consulting for tax evasion and fraud. They're a front company that specializes in what they call family reputation management. Wealthy clients pay them to handle problematic relatives who might embarrass the family or compete for inheritance money." She showed me more documents, including email exchanges that made my hands shake with rage. "Cullen showing excessive ambition. Academic performance threatens established family hierarchy. Recommend increased intervention to maintain control." "Who's paying them?" I asked, though I was beginning to suspect the answer. Sarah pulled up the final document, a corporate filing that revealed Hartley Consulting's true ownership. "Your uncle, Raymond Barrett, has been paying your parents to sabotage you since you were a sophomore in high school." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Uncle Raymond, my father's older brother who had always seemed slightly distant but basically harmless. The successful businessman who owned multiple companies and had 2 sons who were struggling through college with mediocre grades. His sons, Kevin and Derek, are both enrolled in engineering programs. Sarah continued. "Neither one has shown any particular aptitude for the field. Your uncle was apparently concerned that your academic excellence would make his children look bad by comparison, especially when it came time to discuss inheritance and family business succession." She showed me surveillance photos of my parents meeting with Uncle Raymond over the years, envelopes changing hands, documents being signed. 8 years of systematic sabotage, all designed to keep me struggling and dependent while his own children received every advantage. The laptop destruction was scheduled. I said, pieces falling into place. They knew exactly when my thesis defense was scheduled. "Your uncle has been monitoring your academic progress through your parents' reports," Sarah confirmed. Every achievement you earned, despite their interference, was documented and reported back to him. When you managed to excel anyway, he increased the payments and demanded more aggressive intervention. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Family dinner tomorrow night. Uncle Raymond wants to see you. He has a special graduation present." I showed the message to Sarah, and her expression turned cold. "He doesn't know that we know about the payments. This could be our chance to expose everything." As we drove back toward campus, my mind raced with plans for confrontation. 8 years of sabotage, stolen opportunities, and deliberate family betrayal. Uncle Raymond had stolen my teenage years and nearly destroyed my future. All to protect his mediocre children from competition they were too lazy to meet themselves. But I was no longer the confused, struggling teenager he had paid my parents to keep down. I was a summa cum laude engineering graduate with a job offer from one of the most respected companies in my field. I had allies, resources, and most importantly, evidence of everything he had done. Tomorrow night's family dinner was going to be very different from what Uncle Raymond expected. When Sarah dropped me off at my dorm, she handed me a business card for her uncle, the private investigator. "He wants to help," she said. "What your family did to you is illegal on multiple levels. Wire fraud, conspiracy, maybe even extortion, depending on how we approach it." I looked at the card, then at Sarah's determined expression. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we give Uncle Raymond exactly what he deserves," she replied with a smile that would have made a shark nervous. "But we're going to need to be very, very careful about how we do it." As I walked back to my dorm room, I noticed my parents' car was still in the parking lot. They were probably waiting to gloat about my thesis defense, expecting to find me devastated and defeated. Instead, they were about to learn that their partnership with Uncle Raymond had just become the biggest mistake of their lives. The war they started when I was 16 years old was finally about to end, and this time I was going to win. The next evening, I sat across from Uncle Raymond in my parents' cramped dining room, pretending to be the same defeated young man they thought they knew. The hidden recording device Sarah's uncle had provided was tucked safely in my shirt pocket, capturing every word of what would become the most important conversation of my life. Uncle Raymond looked exactly as I remembered him. Expensive suit, confident demeanor, and the kind of smile that never quite reached his eyes. He had driven over from his mansion in Cherry Hills Village, bringing what he claimed was a graduation gift in an elegant silver briefcase. "Cullen," he said warmly, playing the role of concerned uncle perfectly. "Your parents tell me you've been having some difficulties with your thesis defense." I forced myself to look dejected. The defense didn't go as planned. I lied smoothly. "Technical problems with my presentation. I barely passed." My parents nodded approvingly, clearly pleased that their sabotage had apparently succeeded. My father actually smiled as he served dinner, probably thinking about the bonus payment he would receive for the laptop destruction. "That's too bad," Uncle Raymond said with fake sympathy. "But perhaps it's for the best. Sometimes these academic pursuits can be more trouble than they're worth." He opened the briefcase with theatrical flair, revealing stacks of cash that made my parents' eyes widen greedily. "I've been thinking about your future, Cullen. You're a smart young man, but maybe not quite smart enough for the engineering field. It takes special talent that runs in certain bloodlines." The arrogance in his voice made my stomach turn, but I maintained my defeated expression. "I don't understand, Uncle Raymond. Your cousins Kevin and Derek are both excelling in their engineering programs," he continued, lying effortlessly. "They have natural aptitude that can't be taught, but you could still have a good life with the right guidance." He pushed the briefcase toward me. $50,000, cash. Enough to start over somewhere new. Maybe learn a trade that's more suitable for your skill level. All you have to do is sign this agreement saying you'll pursue other career options and won't interfere with family business matters. I stared at the contract he placed beside the money, reading clauses that would essentially banish me from the family permanently. "This says I can never work in engineering or renewable energy." "Exactly," Uncle Raymond said, his mask slipping slightly. "Those fields require connections and reputation that take generations to build. You don't have that kind of background." My mother leaned forward eagerly. "Cullen, This is a wonderful opportunity. $50,000 is more money than you've ever seen. And Uncle Raymond is being very generous," my father added. "Considering how you've embarrassed the family with your academic failures." I looked around the table at these three people who had conspired to destroy my life and felt a strange sense of calm. They had no idea what was coming. "Can I ask you something, Uncle Raymond?" I said carefully. "How long have you been planning this?" His confident expression wavered slightly. "Planning what?" "The sabotage," I said quietly. "The intercepted letters, the destroyed opportunities, the payments to my parents. How long has this been going on?" The room went silent except for the ticking of my mother's kitchen clock. Uncle Raymond's face had turned pale, but he tried to maintain his composure. "I don't know what you're talking about, Cullen." I pulled out my phone and showed him photos of the bank statements Sarah's uncle had provided. Hartley Consulting. Monthly payments of $5,000 for 8 years. Corporate records show you as the sole owner. My parents stared at the phone screen in horror, realizing their secret accounts had been discovered. Uncle Raymond's confident demeanor cracked completely. "How did you get those records?" he demanded. "The same way I found out about everything else," I replied, pulling out more evidence. The intercepted mail, the sabotaged internship interviews, the college applications you had my parents destroy, 8 years of systematic destruction, all documented in your company's files. Uncle Raymond stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. "You little parasite. Do you have any idea what you've cost me? The hours I've spent managing your situation." His mask was completely off now, revealing the cruel manipulator underneath. "You think you're so smart, but you're nothing. A nobody from a nobody family. My sons are going to inherit businesses worth millions, while you flip burgers for minimum wage. Your sons," I said with a laugh, "are about to learn some very interesting things about their father." I pulled out another document, one that made Uncle Raymond's eyes widen with panic. Federal investigation into Hartley Consulting for wire fraud, conspiracy, and tax evasion. Apparently, paying people to sabotage their own family members is illegal in all 50 states. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice shook with uncertainty. "Am I?" I stood up and walked to the living room window, where I could see several black SUVs parked across the street. "Those are FBI agents, Uncle Raymond. They've been watching this house for the past hour, waiting for you to incriminate yourself on tape." I pulled the recording device from my pocket and held it up for everyone to see. "Every word you've said tonight has been captured in crystal clear audio, including your admission to 8 years of systematic sabotage and your attempt to bribe me into signing away my career." My parents looked like they were about to faint. Uncle Raymond lunged toward me, trying to grab the recording device, but I stepped back easily. "Sarah Walsh sends her regards, by the way," I said with a smile. "You remember Sarah, don't you? My childhood friend whose uncle happens to be the private investigator who's been building a federal case against you for the past 6 months." The front door burst open as FBI agents flooded into the house, their voices authoritative and commanding. "Raymond Barrett, you're under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy, and violation of federal racketeering statutes." As they handcuffed my uncle, Agent Davis read him his rights while Agent Martinez secured the briefcase full of cash as evidence. My parents cowered in the corner, realizing they were about to face federal charges as co-conspirators. Sarah appeared in the doorway behind the agents, her expression a mixture of satisfaction and concern. "How are you holding up?" she asked as the agents led Uncle Raymond away in handcuffs. "Better than I thought I would," I admitted, watching my parents get handcuffed and read their rights, though I never imagined it would end like this. Agent Davis approached us with a serious expression. "Mr. Barrett, we're going to need your full cooperation with this investigation. Based on the evidence we've gathered, this conspiracy extends far beyond your family. Your uncle has been running similar operations against other family members across multiple states." As the agents loaded my parents and uncle into separate vehicles, I stood on the front lawn of the house where I had grown up feeling worthless and defeated. But I wasn't that person anymore. I was an engineering graduate with the highest honors, with a promising career ahead, and allies who believed in my potential. The war was finally over, and for the first time in my life, I had won. 6 months later, I sat in a federal courtroom watching Uncle Raymond face the consequences of his elaborate scheme. The investigation had expanded far beyond my family, revealing a network of wealthy individuals who paid Hartley Consulting to sabotage relatives they viewed as threats to their inheritance plans or family status. 17 families across 12 states had been affected by similar operations. Uncle Raymond's company had destroyed college applications, intercepted job offers, sabotaged relationships, and even manipulated medical records to keep successful family members under control. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. Kevin and Derek, my cousins, sat in the back of the courtroom looking shell-shocked. They had learned about their father's crimes through news coverage, discovering that their natural superiority had been artificially maintained through the systematic destruction of their competition. Both had dropped out of their engineering programs in shame, unable to face their classmates after the scandal broke. My parents faced lighter charges since they had cooperated with federal investigators, providing detailed records of their 8-year partnership with Uncle Raymond. They had lost their house to legal fees and were now living in a small apartment while awaiting sentencing. But the most satisfying moment came when federal judge Patricia Hendricks announced Uncle Raymond's sentence. 12 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of probation, complete forfeiture of all business assets, and restitution payments to every family he had harmed. "Mr. Barrett," Judge Hendricks said, looking directly at Uncle Raymond, "your crimes represent a particularly insidious form of abuse that strikes at the heart of family trust and human potential. You systematically destroyed the dreams and futures of your own relatives for personal gain. The court finds your actions to be among the most callous we have encountered." As Uncle Raymond was led away in shackles, I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Justice had been served, but the cost had been enormous for everyone involved. Outside the courthouse, Sarah waited with news that brightened my mood considerably. "Renewable Innovation Corporation just went public," she announced with a huge grin. "Your battery storage patents were a major factor in our IPO success. Your stock options are now worth approximately $2.7 million. I stared at her in disbelief. Less than a year ago, I had been a struggling college student whose parents were actively sabotaging his future. Now I was a millionaire engineer with patents that could revolutionize renewable energy storage. "There's more," Sarah continued. "The publicity from the federal case has generated enormous interest in your story. 3 universities have offered you full scholarships for graduate programs, and we've received inquiries from venture capital firms about licensing your technology." The transformation felt surreal. But I had learned something important about success during the legal proceedings. Real achievement wasn't about proving others wrong or seeking revenge. It was about proving yourself right despite every obstacle they placed in your path. That afternoon, I did something that surprised everyone, including myself. I visited my parents in their small apartment. They answered the door, looking older and more fragile than I remembered. The stress of federal charges and public humiliation had taken a visible toll. My mother's face was drawn with exhaustion, and my father's confident arrogance had been replaced by defeated resignation. "Cullen," my mother said quietly, "we didn't expect to see you." "I know," I replied, sitting down in their modest living room. "I have a proposition for both of you." I explained that their legal fees were mounting rapidly, and they faced potential prison sentences unless they could demonstrate genuine rehabilitation to the court. "I'm prepared to pay your legal bills and provide character testimony, but only under specific conditions." Their eyes widened with desperate hope. "What conditions?" my father asked. "First, you both enter family counseling to understand why you participated in Uncle Raymond's scheme," I said firmly. "Second, you cooperate fully with investigators to help other families who were harmed. Third, you publicly acknowledge what you did and take responsibility for the damage you caused." My parents exchanged glances, pride warring with practical necessity. "And if we refuse?" my mother asked. "Then you face federal conspiracy charges without my financial support or testimony," I said simply. "The choice is yours, but I'm only making this offer once." It took them 3 days to decide, but eventually, they agreed to my conditions. The family counseling sessions were painful but revealing. We discovered that their participation in Uncle Raymond's scheme had roots in their own insecurity and fear of being overshadowed by their child's success. We were jealous, my mother admitted during one particularly difficult session. You were achieving things we never could, and it made us feel like failures as parents. My father struggled more with admitting his mistakes, but gradually acknowledged that accepting Uncle Raymond's money had been easier than confronting his own inadequacies. I thought keeping you down would make me feel better about myself, he said, but it just made me hate myself more. The healing process took months, but slowly we began building a relationship based on honesty instead of manipulation. They started volunteering with a nonprofit organization that helped families affected by financial abuse, sharing their story to help others recognize similar patterns. Meanwhile, my career continued flourishing. Renewable Innovation Corporation's success led to partnerships with major utilities companies and government contracts for renewable energy infrastructure. My patents became the foundation for battery storage systems that powered everything from residential solar installations to massive wind farms. But the most meaningful moment came 9 months after Uncle Raymond's conviction, when my parents attended my speaking engagement at the University of Colorado. I was delivering a lecture on overcoming family obstacles in STEM careers, sharing my story with students who faced their own challenges. As I concluded my presentation, I looked out at the audience and saw my parents in the back row. My father was wiping tears from his eyes, and my mother was applauding with genuine pride. For the first time in my life, they were celebrating my success instead of sabotaging it. The greatest victory, I told the students, isn't defeating your enemies. It's transforming them into allies through the power of forgiveness and the example of your own character. After my presentation, my parents approached the stage with nervous expressions. Cullen, my father said quietly, we wanted to tell you how proud we are of what you've accomplished, despite everything we did to stop you. And we wanted to apologize, my mother added, not just for the sabotage, but for all the years we made you feel like you weren't good enough. You were always brilliant. We were just too scared and selfish to see it. Looking at them, standing there, humbled and genuinely repentant, I realized something profound. The cycle of family dysfunction that had lasted for generations was finally broken. Uncle Raymond's greed had destroyed him, but it had also freed all of us from patterns of manipulation and control. We still had work to do in rebuilding our relationship, but for the first time since childhood, I felt like I had parents who wanted me to succeed instead of fail. The transformation wasn't complete, but it was real, and it gave me hope for continued healing. Justice had been served, but more importantly, redemption had become possible for everyone willing to do the hard work of change. 2 years after Uncle Raymond's conviction, I stood on the stage of the Colorado Convention Center, accepting the National Engineering Excellence Award for Young Professionals. The auditorium buzzed with energy as industry leaders, university professors, and fellow engineers applauded achievements that seemed impossible just a few years earlier. This award recognizes not just technical innovation, the presenter announced, but also the courage to overcome extraordinary obstacles in pursuit of scientific advancement. In the front row sat Sarah, now my business partner and the woman I plan to propose to next month. Renewable Innovation Corporation had grown into a multinational company with offices in 15 countries, largely built on the foundation of my battery storage technology. Our latest breakthrough in solid-state batteries promised to revolutionize electric vehicles and grid-scale energy storage. But the faces that moved me most were in the third row. My parents, Frank and Diane, sat together wearing expressions of genuine pride that would have been unimaginable during my college years. They had completed their community service sentences and now worked full-time for the National Coalition Against Family Financial Abuse, helping other families recognize and escape similar patterns of manipulation. My parents are here tonight, I said into the microphone, gesturing toward them. 2 years ago, they were federal defendants who had spent 8 years sabotaging my education and career opportunities. Today, they're advocates who help other families heal from financial abuse and manipulation. The audience applauded as my parents stood briefly, acknowledging their remarkable transformation. Their journey from conspirators to advocates had been painful but profound, requiring them to confront decades of insecurity and jealousy that had driven their destructive choices. The scholarship fund I had established now provided support for over 200 students annually, focusing specifically on young people from troubled family situations. Each scholarship recipient received not just financial assistance, but also mentoring and counseling services to help them navigate family opposition to their educational goals. Marcus Chen, my former teammate from that desperate night of thesis reconstruction, now served as the fund's director. What makes this program unique, he often told prospective donors, is that it addresses not just financial barriers to education, but emotional and psychological ones as well. Kevin and Derek, my cousins, had taken very different paths after their father's conviction. Kevin had transferred from engineering to social work, eventually specializing in family therapy. He often spoke at conferences about the psychological impact of growing up in families where success was artificially manipulated. Derek had struggled more with shame and guilt, dropping out of college entirely and working various jobs while trying to find his identity outside his father's shadow. But 6 months ago, he had enrolled in community college to study renewable energy technology. Inspired by my advocacy for second chances, the legal aftermath of Uncle Raymond's scheme continued reverberating through multiple states. 43 family members across the country had received restitution payments, while dozens of others had come forward with similar stories of relatives who had mysteriously sabotaged their opportunities. The case had sparked legislative efforts to criminalize family financial abuse more explicitly. Uncle Raymond himself remained in federal prison, where he would stay for another 8 years. His former business empire had been dismantled and its assets distributed to victims. His mansion in Cherry Hills Village had been sold, with proceeds going to the Victim Restitution Fund. But perhaps the most meaningful development was the relationship Sarah and I had built with my parents. Family dinners now featured conversations about engineering challenges, renewable energy policy, and our latest research projects. My father had developed genuine interest in my work, asking thoughtful questions about battery chemistry and grid integration challenges. "I wish I had encouraged your interests from the beginning," he often said. "Imagine what you might have achieved if we had supported you instead of fighting you." My mother had become particularly passionate about helping other families avoid their mistakes. "We stole 8 years of opportunities from our own son," she told support groups. "But the tragedy isn't just what we did to him. It's what we did to ourselves, living with that guilt and watching him succeed despite our efforts to stop him." The speaking engagement circuit had become an important part of my mission. Universities, corporations, and family counseling organizations regularly invited me to share my story. But I always emphasized that the real heroes were the people who chose transformation over victimhood. Success, I told audiences, isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right, even when the people who should support you most are actively working against your dreams. Tonight's awards ceremony concluded with a reception where I mingled with industry leaders who had once seemed impossibly out of reach. These were the same companies whose job offers my parents had hidden, the same research institutions whose invitations Uncle Raymond had intercepted. "Your story has become legendary in our field," said Dr. Patricia Williams, director of the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, "not just for your technical contributions, but for demonstrating that talent and determination can overcome even the most systematic opposition." As the evening wound down, I found myself standing outside the convention center with Sarah and my parents, looking up at the clear Colorado sky. The lights of Denver sparkled below us, a city that had witnessed both my lowest moments and greatest triumphs. "You know what the best part of this whole experience has been?" I asked them. "What's that?" Sarah replied. "Learning that forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't hurt," I said, looking at my parents. "It's about choosing to build something better from the wreckage of what came before." My father nodded thoughtfully. "We'll never be able to undo the damage we caused, but we can spend the rest of our lives making sure other families don't make the same mistakes. And that," I concluded, "is how we break cycles that have lasted for generations." The The truth I had discovered through this journey was profound, but simple. When we choose forgiveness over revenge and redemption over retribution, we create possibilities for healing that seemed impossible in our darkest moments. The greatest victory isn't defeating your enemies. It's transforming them into allies through the power of your own character and the courage to believe that people can change. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus Chen. Just got word that our latest battery prototype exceeded all efficiency benchmarks. Ready to change the world again tomorrow. I smiled, typing back, "Always ready." Because that's what real success looks like. Not a moment of triumph that ends the story, but the foundation for continued growth, innovation, and positive impact that ripples outward to touch countless other lives. The boy who once sat bleeding in a dorm room, surrounded by the fragments of his destroyed laptop, had become a man capable of transforming not just technology, but the people who had tried to destroy him. And tomorrow, we would continue building a future that none of us could have imagined when the journey began. Have you ever faced family members who tried to sabotage your dreams or hold you back from achieving your potential? How did you find the strength to keep moving forward, despite their opposition? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below, because every person who refuses to give up despite family obstacles inspires others to keep fighting for their future. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories of people who overcame impossible odds to achieve their dreams. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that family sabotage doesn't have to define their destiny, and that forgiveness and determination can transform even the most broken relationships. Thank you for taking this journey with me, and remember that your dreams are valid no matter who tries to convince you otherwise. Keep pushing forward. Keep believing in yourself, and never let anyone else write the ending to your story. Your future is waiting, and you absolutely deserve every bit of success you're willing to work for.